Ladies and gentlemen, I have brought a position up to you in the past called Israel only. Now, there are groups out there, various stripes of groups, such as British Israelites who think that they are literal descendants of Israel. They take a genealogical model and they somehow think they play a role in prophecy, and this goes into the myth of the lost tribes of Israel. There are also those who are Hebrew Israelites, typically African Americans, that are playing the role of Israelites in a modern context. They think that they are lost Israelites as well. There are various groups who think this, but the group I brought up to you is a little more sophisticated in their approach, in that they're not identifying themselves as Israelites. They are saying that Paul's audience in the first century, whom we call Gentiles, meaning those who are not Israel, they are actually lost Israelites. Why? Well, they find precedents in the Hebrew scripture where the term goyim is used for people who are the seed of Abraham or nations. And so this term means the same thing in their minds in the New Testament. And I've interviewed many, I repeat, many academics. Audiophile Ishai Rosensfee. I've interviewed Christopher D. Stanley pertaining to Paul's recontextualization of the Hebrew scriptures, or better yet, the Septuagint. I've interviewed Cattell Berthelot multiple times in this particular vein. I've even had a paid project for Richard Carrier to assess and analyze critically this particular view. I've had many. I've had Jason Staples come on. He's the closest thing to this idea of what they call Israel only, and that is that salvation, redemption, soteriology, biblically speaking, only pertains to literal, genetic, biological descendants of Abraham only. And I have dug into this for many years. So there was another interview with Jason Staples on my buddy Jacob Berman's YouTube channel, and I threw him a few coins. Got to have those shekels out there to help your content creators. Super chatted him my questions. And of course, this is what Dr. Staples had to say.
So we have a super chat here from MythVision podcast. Dr. Staples is a great scholar. Is he aware of Cattell Berthelot work, Jews and their Roman rivals? I apologize if I mispronounced that name.
Yeah, I'm aware of this work. I haven't read it. I haven't read all of it, but I am aware of it. And it's she is a phenomenal scholar, and that book deservedly won actually one of the top awards in the field of Jewish studies last year for being exemplary, and it's a terrific book. I have not had a chance to read through all of it yet, but I am aware of it, and it's so far it's already garnishing well-deserved praise.
Now, of course, before we continue into the other super chats, Dr. Staples absolutely acknowledges the phenomenal work of Cattell Berthelot, and her work actually shows it's not Christian ideas that non-Israelites can join Israel and become in covenant with Israel, so much so that they are actual children of Abraham.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
But they weren't birthed children of Abraham, but yet they're still considered children of Abraham. Why? Well, Galatians 3 clearly indicates there's one seed. That seed is Christ. If you're found in Christ, you're a seed of Abraham. Paul makes an interesting yet convoluted argument, but nonetheless an interesting one, to try and fit Gentiles into the scheme of God's redemption of Israel. How do they play this role? Well, Paul is an apocalyptic last days figure, and I just wanted to show you on pages 402 and 403 of her book, there is a section here, a paragraph, in the section of the Jerusalem Talmud that discusses in Bikurim 1:4. We encounter a revolutionary approach to this issue. It was taught on Tanaitic authority in the name of Ar Yehuda. The convert himself brings the first fruits and recites the declaration prescribed in Deuteronomy 26:3. The convert is somebody who wasn't a Jew who's converting. No longer shall your name be Abram, but your name shall be Abraham. For I have made you a father of a multitude of nations. Genesis 17:5. In the past, you were a father to Aram, but from now on, you are a father to all the nations. Goyim. Arya Hashua B. Levi said, the law, halakha, accords with Ar Yehuda. A case came before Ar Abahu, and he rendered a decision in accordance with the position of Ar Yehuda. Did you hear that? And you might want to read this entire book, Jews and their Roman Rivals, which I've been recommending to those online that are Israel-only proponents. And I don't think any of them have read it, because really, do they care, or do they just want their position to be true? These are honest questions. But in this book, she tells you about the influence of outside nations, especially pagan Rome, and how they impacted Jews. Now, who are the Jews? Well, the early Christians were Jews. Paul was a Jew. Is it possible that Paul is being impacted, especially with his adoption concepts, from pagan Rome? Read the book, get acquainted with Philo and Josephus, understand how Jews wrote their literature. And let's listen to this idea of genetic descendants. Did Paul believe that his Gentiles were genetic descendants of Abraham only?
So we have another super chat from MythVision. Thanks again, Derek, for the another $5. His question is, what do you say about the idea which equates Paul's Gentiles to literal descendants of Abraham? Are the Gentiles in Paul's day literal Israelites?
So, first of all, Paul doesn't seem real interested in establishing that, in answering that question. I think if we're playing the odds are that some of the people who converted into Christianity from the various places that Paul was preaching and all of that, that some of these people who were from Gentile stock, somewhere in the past, it's entirely possible and probably and plausible that at least one of them had an Israelite ancestor somewhere way back in the past. I don't see any reason why that would not be plausible or possible or even probable. I don't think that would be unlikely. I don't think that Paul thinks that all of his Gentile converts are former, are people who have Israelite ancestors and just are unaware of it sometime in the past. I don't think that that's the case. I think he understands. I think he makes the case that in order to get the people who are descendants of those other Israelite tribes who married into Gentile stock, in order to get those people, in order for those people to be included in the promises of God, as the prophet said, then you have to bring in the nations so that those people are included sort of by proxy. I think that's the logic that he uses, but I don't think it's a situation where every convert that Paul, has come in and receives the Spirit is, if you just looked back in the genealogy far enough ago, then there's, some Israelite ancestor somewhere. And actually, interestingly, there's a place in 1 Timothy, which, most modern biblical scholars don't think was written by Paul himself, but it's certainly in the Pauline tradition. It actually condemns, excessive attention to genealogies. It basically says, it says, stop messing around, trying to look through all these genealogies. And you wonder whether or not maybe that's what some of these people were doing, is trying to look in their genealogies to see where they fit on the, did they have an Israelite ancestor somewhere, and working their way back there. That's a bit speculative, but it's not improbable that's what that's referring to. And, the tradition in the Pauline tradition, I think that basically just says that's not necessary.
Okay, let's cut to the chase. I've asked you all these things, but Dr. Staples, I really need to know. Quit beating around the bush, right? Quit beating around the bush. Is the New Testament exclusively for salvation of genetic, biological descendants of Abraham only? Pretty much. Is Israel only the case? Let's see what he has to say.
Oh, MythVision podcast, another $5. Thank you again, Derek. So if someone is interpreting Paul in the New Testament as an exclusive message to genealogical descendants of Abraham only, you would flat out disagree, right?
Correct. Yes, I would disagree with that.
Well, I can already predict the kind of responses I'll get from Israel only because they've been trolling for years and nothing has changed their minds. And I'm pretty positive nothing will. The day someone who's Israel only actually changes their mind, I will interview them. I absolutely will put them on a pedestal and ask them how and why their minds were changed. But there's something behind Israel only, and it's this position called full preterism. And I cannot and I will not waste my time today diving into the idea that the second coming of Jesus happened in 70 AD. If all else fails for IO, they still have the end in 70. We don't have time to pick that apart because the near end was there in the New Testament, and I say it failed, as do most every academic that's out there, other than the ones that say it's future. But either way, what the heck are we doing at this point in this video? Let me know what you think. If you haven't heard of it, I'm giving you Israel Only guys a little bit of advertisement. How do you like it? I'm giving you advertisement. Read the book. Read the freaking book. Read the books. Goy, Israel's Multiple Others by Adio Fear and Ishai Rosenzweig. Read Jews and the Roman Rivals by Cattell Berthelot. Be on the lookout for even Jason Staples' works, and he has his second volume coming out soon. I appreciate everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if at the very least it might have created curiosity for you to investigate Israel Only and to see how wild some of these ideas are out there and how people can come up with them and why. It is an interesting position to consider because there are Hebrew Bible texts about the prediction of the regathering of Israel, but has Israel taken on new forms over history? Has the term goy, goyim, ethne, ethnos taken on new meaning over time as well? What is implied in the New Testament? Thanks a lot for checking out. Never forget, we are MythVision.